Hello.
This is the most bombed country on Earth, one of Southeast Asia's least visited places. Laos sits right between Thailand and Vietnam, yet many people skip it altogether.
It's a place where backpackers only stop on their way to somewhere else. But the clock is ticking. New high-speed trains are bringing mass tourism to what might be the most peaceful and spiritual country in Asia.
We spent a month exploring Laos in depth, journeying off the beaten path to remote villages accessible only by boat, seeking to understand Laos as it is, to capture a way of life that might soon disappear.
Laos is the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. It has a population of about 8 million people and its capital is Vientiane. Now, most people skip this city, and to be honest, if you only look at the main sites, you could wrap them up in a couple of hours. But tucked away in a quiet hospital yard, there's a building that tells one of the most important stories in the country.
COPE Visitor Center explains the history and the consequences of the secret war that the US conducted in Laos. Between 1964 and 1973, the United States dropped over 2 million tons of ordnance on Laos, made Laos the most bombed country per capita. These bombs were not ordinary bombs, they were cluster bombs, meaning they would split mid-air and drop hundreds of tiny so-called bombies. To give you an idea of the sheer quantity of ordnance dropped, that's the equivalent of dropping one whole load of bombs every 8 minutes for 9 years straight, 24/7. 10 to 30% of these bombies are unexploded still and are still laying somewhere in the ground in Laos. Since the end of the war, over 20,000 people died, 40% of them children. It's common for children to pick them up and play with them as a ball, or it's common for farmers, especially when they're plowing the land or digging the land, to accidentally strike one and explode. And this obviously has created a problem with people losing their limbs, children losing their arms or legs, and hindering also economic development, because there's a lot of fear in rural areas to, go out and dig, because you never know if you may strike a bomb. COPE helps people move forward with prosthetics, but also there are 3,000 volunteers every day that go around and try to find these unexploded bombs and get rid of them.
The scars of the secret war are everywhere, including the UNESCO heritage city, ancient royal capital Luang Prabang. Unlike other loud and flashy Southeast Asian cities, Luang Prabang feels like a peaceful sanctuary. Here, even the Mekong River, the lifeline of Southeast Asia, slows down and becomes a storyteller. Walking along its bank is the best way to discover the city and find stories and myths hidden in its stunning architecture.
The reason Luang Prabang got listed in 1995 as a UNESCO World Heritage Site is for how it beautifully blends this old Laotian style of architecture with the new French colonial style. The UNESCO World Heritage was a blessing because with the baby boom and, as soon as a bit of economic development arrived here, a lot of foreign style of architecture got imported into Laos. But with the revolution of 1975, this stopped. And then with further economic development, it started again. But with the UNESCO World Site, some rules were set on how to build buildings that, would fit in the rest of the city. Traditional architecture houses are built on stilts with the bottom floor empty to facilitate airflow given the hot tropical weather. They were usually orientated parallel to the river and always had a veranda. Also, various slant roofs to fight the heavy monsoon rain. Of course, you'll see many examples around here, but I think the best one is the Hewan Chan residence, which shows how families a little bit more aristocratic could also have some nicer decoration in there. Also very important in the city layout is the religious sacred architecture. Here we're visiting Wat Tong, which is the most important, most visited monastery in all of Luang Prabang. Monasteries or Bat are actually the core of every village. When a village is established, as soon as people have enough to sustain a monk, they would build a koti first, a residence for the monk, and then the sim, which is the main sanctuary. Now Luang Prabang has many bats because they used to be the center of many bands, which is villages. Actually, Luang Prabang is a city, but it's a collection of villages. This is the main place of worship, and the sim has this beautiful mosaic in the back of a tree of life with several species coexisting peacefully, and there features some peacocks that used to be very abundant here in the area. Another important building is the one behind me, used to house the chariot used during the funeral of Kit Sisaveng Vang in 1961. Probably the most impressive garage I've seen. The chariot is beautiful and it has all these golden decorations featuring this beautiful seven-headed naga monster. And nagas are these water creatures. Their role is to protect buildings and peoples. That's why they're placed in what are considered the most vulnerable points of entries, like staircases, roofs, sometimes windows and doors. According to the legend, there are 15 nagas inhabiting the Mekong that protect Luang Prabang.
The right corner room of the royal palace hosts the most important statue of the whole Luang Prabang city, which is the Prabang Buddha statue. In the 1500s, the city changed its name to Luang Prabang in honor of this particular statue. The legend has it, this statue was casted in the 1st century AD in Sri Lanka. It's a rather small statue made of gold, silver, and bronze. You couldn't film in there, and before going in, needs to remove shoes on the stairs.
And our hotel actually is one of those buildings that was built in 2019, but it follows this Lao traditional style.
Style mixing with the colonial French style. So the inside of the room is fully wooden. Everything is set really nicely.
The location is right where the two rivers meet. You can actually see the color of the Mekong and the Nam Kham mixing. Every room actually has, with this veranda, you can overlook the rivers, and there's also this park right next to the river. It's a quieter part of town compared to, you know, where the night market is, but it's not too far anyways. And they give you bicycles and this really vintage looking cool shuttle that drops you at the town center. So I would recommend staying in a place like this.
Try it once, you know, because you're here and it's really unique to this town.
Not far from the hotel, you find a restaurant that has become an institution, because here every meal is like a crash course on the complex and delicious Lao cuisine.
Lao Lao is the local whiskey in Laos. We get a taster of two different Lao Lao. One is tamarind, the other one is honey. Well, let's see. Oh, so this is not strong, but it does have a tangy taste.
So that's sweet.
Yeah, it is sweet. The same here. These are not strong. Yeah, they taste pretty good. We got a set introduction to Laos cuisine. So we're gonna try the most local variations of different food. The first one on the table is a soup. It's a black color thick soup with pure veggies like mainly bamboo shoots and some other green vegetables and chili. Very heavy, star anise, and a little bit of lemongrass taste.
When I was reading about Luang Prabang cuisine, we specifically mentioned the sausage, which reminds me a lot of the Italian sausage. And I also use herbs in it, but they use different herbs. In Italy, we use a lot of fennel seeds. Here, I think it's lemongrass and some other local spices. And they serve it with this chili paste that has some buffalo skin in it to add flavor. So here, water buffaloes are very common, so they're also one of the main proteins of Laos. Whoa, this looks so thick. Maybe I took too much. What the dip is so good. The consistency similar to like concentrate tomato paste almost, or pate. Right, it's delicious.
They also serve this buffalo meat jerky. These are really hard and it's all muscle. It's sweet. It's actually tastes a little bit like, if you know Cantonese food, it's a little bit like the char siu. It's like sweet sauce with the sesame on it. So it's kind of familiar to me. You know, we eat a lot of this.
Oh, this is so juicy. Wow. You can really taste the lemongrass, and since the fish was steamed in the banana leaf and it kept like all the juice in there, it's really juicy and it's perfect with the sticky rice, because when you get to dip, try some.
We're leaving the Mekong behind to climb up on Posi Hill. The way up this viewpoint is full of beautiful Buddhist art, and once you reach the top, you understand what makes Luang Prabang unique.
We are surrounded by mountains, by jungle, and we are at the intersection of two rivers. So before, the only way to get here via land was to go through very unpleasant and kind of dangerous bus rides through these cliffs and mountains, or slow boats that would take up to 2 days from Thailand or China.
Everything changed in 2021 with the Lao-China Railway, high-speed train all the way from Kunming in China to Vientiane in Laos. So think about how
the massive change it brought. Before, Laos has only a 4 kilometers railway built by the French in the south of Laos. But now, this 1,000-kilometer railway connects many of major cities in Laos. It cuts through mountains with 167 bridges and 75 tunnels. Basically reduce multi-day hard drive into a couple of hours comfortable train ride.
The railway has brought a lot more tourists. This place had a massive uptake, higher than when it got UNESCO status in 1995. And you can see the influence of these millions of Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, Korean, middle-class tourists everywhere.
Our hotel manager this morning just told us, despite, you see the tourist number goes up on paper, but a lot of them actually, they go to hotels or restaurants, especially catered for larger group. So in authentic places, you see a drop in tourists.
This change is obviously in the landscape. There's a lot more hotels, restaurants popping up. But I think the biggest difference is on the sidewalks at 5 a.m. in the morning. Every morning here in Luang Prabang, like in every Theravada Buddhist city, monks perform the so-called takbat, which is the receiving of alms. And with the huge mass tourism here in Luang Prabang, this has become sort of a main attraction. We were reading reports online that, it feels like a circus and people are just shoving phones in the monks' faces and trying to take selfies with them. He's indeed the case. I only saw them giving sticky rice and treats, whilst the Logas, for example, they would get up at 4 a.m. to start cooking something nutritious for them. There's peddlers coming at you, trying to sell you food. The monks perform this in a meditative state. They're not supposed to have cameras shoving their faces, see flashes, be surrounded by people who are smoking or chatting, or by tour guides explaining what's going on. This is usually done in silence with people, receiving their blessing. It's a sacred thing for the community, for the monks, and it's turned into almost like a zoo. There's a river of white vans from all these tourist groups. Here comes another one. Everywhere, every street is just covered in white vans from tourist groups, and you see they keep passing by. It is incredible. I've never seen something like this. And we spoke to a taxi driver about it who used to be a monk for 11 years, and he gave us some advice. Try to at least do it in a smaller temple. These touristy temples get too much bad food. The smaller temples, they're not getting enough food. And also try to give something more nutritious. Try to give some fruit, etc. So tomorrow we'll try again in another part of town to show you how it should be.
The difference between the two rituals was night and day. Here we just saw local families quietly offering home-cooked food to support the monks, exactly how it's been done for centuries.
In this quiet residential street, we stumbled upon a local breakfast stall and got a taste of how Laotians start their day.
Very fragrant. In China, we also have porridge, but here she cut a boiled egg in there, like a tea egg. And there's some chunk of meat. There's, I think, fried onion or garlic. Put limes in it and some other condiments.
It's good.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's a really complex flavor. In the porridge, we usually eat plain porridge, just right, because nothing else, and there's absolutely no flavor. But this one is so flavorful. It's like a noodle soup.
But to understand how people eat around here, you have to go to the morning market. We went in expecting to find produce and street food, but by the end of our visit, we saw something we weren't supposed to see.
Good thing to do right after the alms, when it's still early morning, is to come to the morning market, which is a bit more like oriented towards groceries and produce and things to buy, but you can still find street food stalls, especially if you come early, because apparently the best stuff all runs out pretty quickly. So we got some very delicious coconut pancakes here. And we saw towards the end what looked like a porcupine or a hedgehog. The woman selling it immediately covered it from the camera. I don't know if it's because it's forbidden to hunt and sell, but Laos is actually struggling a little bit with wildlife hunting, because people, especially in the villages, they catch whatever they can find and they go sell it at the market. So it's not uncommon to see even pangolin and these other species that are protected.
Seeing the abundance of ingredients, one can't help but wonder, how do chefs combine them to make Laotian food? So we went and tried the most famous national dish of Laos.
It is called Laarb. because the pronunciation in the Laos language, it sounds like unexpected fortune or luck. So people eat it on the first day of New Year, so they would have good luck through the whole year. It's basically a mincemeat salad. It could be any meat. Today we have pork, but it could be chicken, fish, or even organ sometimes, depending on what do you have in hand.
Traditionally, this was reserved for the aristocracy because obviously common people couldn't afford meat. In aristocratic family, servants weren't allowed to prepare the more delicate dishes like this, so the female of the household would prepare it. But in common household, when they could prepare this, the female would only get the ingredients ready and the head of the household would be the one to do the final mix. This is definitely a version adapted for tourists because the original is supposed to be really bitter because it has animal bile in it, but this is very mild flavor. And yes, it is spicy. There's some nice mint as well, so it also very some fresh and zesty. There's a belief in Buddhism that elephants are the last stage of animal before reincarnating into people, so they're spiritually highly revered. And Laos was called the Lanshan Kingdom, Lanshan meaning the land of 1 million elephants. But unfortunately, there aren't 1 million elephants in Laos. There are not even 1,000. There are about 800, of which most of them, 500, are still employed for logging and transportation. So they're used as trucks or tractors to carry logs or to move in the forest where lorries and tractors can go. When the elephants are not useful for working anymore, since it costs a lot of money to maintain them, often people just abandon them. If you come to Southeast Asia, there will be lots of companies offering activities with elephants, from riding them and taking photos to bathing them. Problem is, often they're forced to do these things.
So if you're planning a trip around here and you want to see elephants or any wildlife, just make sure you choose an association that just takes you on a walk with them, or even better, lets you observe them from far without riding them, bathing them, or doing anything uncomfortable for the animals. Luang Prabang is the crown jewel of Laos and the most visited place in the country. But just a short train ride to the south, there's a city famous for all the wrong reasons.
We just arrived in Vieng, and this place has undergone a crazy transformation. This used to be the party capital, not just of Laos, but of the whole of Southeast Asia. Backpackers from all over the regions came here to get drunk and high on buckets of cheap alcohol and drugs, and then to do crazy, reckless rivers activities like ziplining, sliding, tubing. Needless to say, that combination turned out to be very dangerous. And it got so bad and there were so many deaths that this was re-nicknamed from party capital to the death capital of Southeast Asia. And given the reputation, the government decided to step in 2012 and tried to force a pivot.
Today is the 1st of January 2026, and yesterday for New Year's Eve we were going around expecting to see some crowds and maybe some chaos. In fact, we find it quieter than we thought, and there are small pockets of parties happening, but it's definitely not, what we've heard this place would be. We also passed by the famous JD bar. It used to offer drugs on the menu. There was a small party, but overall it looks very normal, like a regular bar.
The place that sums it up the most is this party pool hotel. Bunch of containers arranged in a circle with a bar and a swimming pool right in the middle. They were blasting music and this lasers and strobo lights on. Felt like a post-apocalyptic movie because the bar was completely empty. I think it was a good image of, the dead party capitals. What was nice was seeing the locals celebrate New Year's Eve. They were super genuine.
Yeah, they group all together, a few friends, and they were having barbecues right in front of the shop. They have this karaoke speaker and they were all singing and dancing. I have an impression Laos people, they're more like introverts, but at that moment they feel like they're almost Filipinos, more outgoing.
Yeah.
It was fun to see that.
Yeah, it was lovely. That was probably the highlight. The nicest thing to see on New Year's Eve was the locals having fun in their own town that used to be a place where instead outsiders would go and completely get wrecked. So now what is trying to turn into an adventure hub. So our mission here is to kind of find out how good of an adventure hub it is. The main attractions in Vieng are the Blue Lagoons. There are many. This is number 3, which is little bit further from the number 1 and 2, which are way busier. It's really good fun. You can do zip lining, and the drive here is very beautiful. You can rent a scooter to get here. It's about 40 minutes drive. You go through some very nice villages, and you have the view of the beautiful cliff up here, which is amazing. Even if it's shaded, it's not cold at all. Like, the water temperature is perfect, and it's really good fun.
Passing the lagoon number 3, a small walk in the forest. There is a cave up there, and it's pretty deep. There's a small lagoon in the cave. I guess you can swim out, but we didn't, so we came back from the same way, and we ended up here with 2 buffaloes.
In Vang Vieng, the first thing that hits you is the sheer scale of the landscape. The town is completely surrounded by these massive jagged limestone mountains. And it looks like the rebranding worked. We expected people too hungover to function, but everyone was out on the trails or chasing adrenaline outdoors. And some hikes will take you to some of the most dramatic viewpoints in Southeast Asia. This is also one of the places with the most affordable hot air balloon rides, so we had to give it a shot, and floating over these peaks as the sun goes down was just unreal.
While Luang Prabang and Van Vieng are well connected, much of Laos remained difficult to reach. Long bumpy road turned short distance into exhausting long journey. We're heading north to a remote village surrounded by untouched nature, wanting to see how communities out here actually live before new highways and mass tourism inevitably find their way upriver.
This river behind me is the Nam Un River. It's one of the most important rivers in Laos, and its name literally translates to the Rice Bowl River. It has been feeding the northern Laos for centuries, and now it also powers the neon lines in Bangkok. Laos is also nicknamed the Battery of Southeast Asia. As of 2025, it has more than 80 operational hydropower plants, and it has been exporting 60% of its energy to neighboring countries like Thailand, which is one of its biggest buyers, and also Cambodia, China, Vietnam, and as far as Singapore.
7 of these power dams are actually in this very river, the Nam O, which also has an incredible biodiversity. There are over 84 species of fishes here, and 29 live exclusively in this river. So those projects have also threatened the biodiversity of the region, and the river, on top of feeding people here, functioned as a sort of highway connecting several towns and villages. And we're now based in Nong Khiaw. There is an incredible landscape here, and we're gonna go up and down the river to visit some villages that are reachable only by boat, and to visit some ethnic minorities and see a little bit how life is around here.
Walking along the muddy village roads feels strangely familiar. Children laugh and play, greeting us with warm smiles and curious eyes. We watch the older kids play kick volleyball, their effortless skill unlike anything we've seen before. It's a simple life that feels deeply nostalgic, a reminder of the childhood we once knew. Even out here, the shadow of the secret war is everywhere. We hiked into caves so deep the openings were barely 30 centimeters wide, and stumbled over rusted machine guns, bullets, and old soldier rations just rotting in the dark. To get further upriver, we jumped on a public boat the locals use as a bus to hop between villages. It dropped us off in Ngoy, a town that feels completely cut off from the world, yet ironically seems to survive almost entirely on backpackers.
More serviced than we expected. We knew there were a lot of guest houses and restaurants, but we didn't know there were this many. We didn't book anything online because apparently the best way to go about it is to just rock up to a few, check out the rooms, and the ones you like, you ask for the price and stay. It's a very beautiful place. It does feel a bit more remote than Nong Khiaw, obviously, because it's harder to reach, but you know, you can find all the amenities that you can find there also here.
Now, just after lunchtime, the town become really quiet. Everybody's just disappeared from the street. The busiest time was when the boat arrived.
Yeah, there's only the dogs taking naps on the streets.
Which is nice. I mean, it's a small village. What can you do?
Yeah, it's one street, and I think we walked up and down already 5 times in a few hours. But it's a lovely rest.
It's a place like for chilling, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who come here with us in the same boat, they just directly check into the guest house and
disappear.
Disappear, resting and just look at the river, do nothing.
In smaller communities, you'll notice many monks are kids, and that's because temples in Laos act as school, providing families and their kids with an education. Much of the village life revolves around the temple. Every morning, locals sweep the street and prepare meals to offer to the kids in exchange for their blessing. After the takbat, we walked out of the village to the countryside and had an incredible meal, where we least expected it.
We stopped at this organic farm. It looks really good. You have to enter into a small road and it's right under the mountain. There's no menu, but they do have food. So we just tell them we're 2 people and they're going to prepare whatever food they have. So it's basically a veggie fried rice and with the fried egg on top. It's a really common dish. It's yummy. They use this sweet soy sauce. Tastes a little bit like the Japanese, how do you call it?
Teriyaki?
Teriyaki, yeah. It's kind of teriyaki. It's like...
Deeper in the jungle, there are Khmu ethnic minority village, and we decided to go and visit one to learn about how this ethnic group lives off the grid.
We're the only ones here. There is no... this is the port, the pier. And yeah, we're gonna go in the Khmu village and try to find out, or at least see a little bit more about how Khmu people live, because they have a very distinct culture from the rest of Laos. So there's actually a small water project that was initiated by the Rotary from Canada, and they're taking donations to help them build the road that leads down to the pier, because it was very rough, the road up, and you can live the signature here. The village stopped when we walked in. Everyone just froze and looked at us like, what are these people doing here? What we know about the Khmu people traditionally and generally, because obviously this one village might be different and might be also a bit modernized, is that they're not Buddhist like the rest of Laos. They have their own folk religion, animist religion, where the central part of the spiritual belief is actually not a temple but the house. They believe when a house is built, it becomes sort of part of the wider nature spirits. Every house has the spirits of the house that they sort of worship, and this religion is based on taboos, so things that you absolutely should not do, not to anger those spirits. One is not celebrating the birth of a newborn if it comes food first, for example, not to disrespect or touch the amulets, the altars dedicated to the spirits of the house, and the last one is do not enter someone's house without permission. But this might not apply to the village, because like many other ethnic minorities, every village has a tiny bit of a distinct culture and even distinct language. Matter of fact, the Khmu often speak 3 languages at least. They speak their Khmu language, the village dialect, Laotian, and sometimes even a 4th language would be if they trade with other minorities, like the Hmong minorities. They would speak their language for trading. Life is very simple, mostly based around agriculture, and usually villages are supposed to be fenced with the food barns where they store rice and grains outside of the village and elevated to keep the pests away from the village, and also for reducing risks of fires. But yeah, it's incredible to be here.
Everybody on the street, everybody's doing their lively duty all together. There's a lot of kids. I feel like half the villages are kids. They're just playing and everybody's saying savadi to us, which is hi, hello in Lao language. So it's I don't know, it has a family feeling to this place. Luang Prabang, which is a bigger city, it didn't feel like this lively, because there everybody's caring more about their business. I feel like distance in between people is larger, but here it feels like this village is a big family by itself.
We're gonna hike to that village called Sopchem, which is apparently a weaving village. Looks like every house here has a loom and is weaving for a living. When they see you approaching as a tourist, they will start using the loom to, get attention.
How it's made, yeah.
I wonder if this was the main form of sustenance here, or it was sort of like established as a tourist attraction and it became like the weaving village.
We have stuff similar. For example, the village have a main skill.
In China, true in south of China.
And then with tourism, they would just promote everybody. Let's just do this all together. Yeah, exactly.
On our next episode, we're leaving the heat of the jungle to climb up to the edge of the Tibetan plateau to discover the real Shangri-La. We're going to dive deep into Khmu Tibetan culture, exploring remote mountain villages, visiting legendary monasteries, and soak the wisdom of a revered Geshe-la. It's going to be an intense, beautiful, and totally different kind of adventure. Make sure you click subscribe and we'll see you on the mountains.